you need to license both copyrights. It's the most basic and easy lesson that you'll need to learn about music in your projects. So music publishers, what do we do for our songwriters and composers? We are there to register and protect their copyrights. Quite often that can involve some police work as such, when someone rips off a song for an advertising campaign that sounds very much like an existing song. We've done that a number of times over the years. The best one we've come up against many years ago was a feminine hygiene product. We're using a piece of music that sounded very much like a Nick Cave track called Red Right Hand. So we had to go into bat for Nick Cave, who we represented in that particular case. There have been other ones where, for instance, one of our songwriters contacted us to say that he had been told that one of his songs was appearing on a porn site. I have had to professionally surf the porn and serve notice on that particular company, and they settled very quickly. I did refuse to give the password to anyone else in the building. One of the other things that we do, of course, for our songwriters is we are bean counters. We do collect their royalties for them, and we do pay them advances for their royalties as well. It's probably the most boring component to music publishing, but it's the most important because although people don't say they're in it for the money, artists need to pay their rent, and that's one reason we're there for them. We're there to exploit them as well, which sounds like a horrible name, but not a horrible sounding word, but it is what we actually do for them. We are looking to create positive connections with people to create additional income from them, for the use of their music, be it film, be it TV advertising, of course gaming. Part of the exploitation is also taking their music to the world through our sub-publishers, people who represent us for the different territories of the world, so they can try and increase the income for the composers overseas. And part of that is you don't necessarily have to have a record release overseas. Those who represent us in the US are a mob called Chrysalis, who do a fantastic job of getting our songs of lesser known bands into big American TV series like Grey's Anatomy. So that's one thing we do for our artists, is try and exploit their music. We are there for a creative help. Quite often they'll bring us demos, opinions on new songs. They don't bring them to me because my taste in music is probably my bum compared to our A&R people, and that's what they're there for, to offer advice on new songs that our songwriters bring to us. We're there to help them with co-writing opportunities. For instance, we run regular writers' workshops where we get composers who don't know each other together to network, write new songs, record those demos. For new contacts, I need a new manager. Who can you put me in contact with? That sort of thing. And we're there for general advice on their music career, which can be as basic as I need to sell my old bass. Do you know anyone who might buy it? Should I sign to this label? What do you think of this person? General career advice to our songwriters is one of the reasons we're there for them. So just to summarise, so you know who we are. We're not a record label, but we are a publishing company representing recording artists and, representing songwriters, whereas the related master recordings can be owned by either the major record companies. In some cases, the artists themselves retain ownership of their master recordings. We also have, through our record labels, we also control a lot of those master recordings where the bands are actually signed to the Mushroom Group for recording and also to Mushroom Group for publishing through us. So, who does Mushroom Music Publishing represent? Is a question I thought you'd be interested in knowing about. We are Australia's largest independent music publisher. It means we're not a major, so we're not part of the Vendy Empire or Sony or anything like that. We are independent, but we, in this country, we have the bulk and clout of a major. Now, because we're an independent company doesn't mean we just represent indie artists. We do have locals as big as Eskimo Joe, whose new album is coming out in a very short amount of time, and we've already heard it, so that's one advantage of working for Mushroom. The new single is the most played the most played new release on Australian radio last week. There you go. Songwriters like Kylie Minogue, Neil Finn, recent local success stories, bands that have had gold record releases in this country, and gold records are nothing to be sneezed at anymore because it's a pretty tough market. Faker, Gyroscope, Josh Pyke, the Panics have just relocated to the UK for an amount of time to try and break over there. We also represent local indies. There is a music prize called funnily enough, the Australian Music Prize, which is similar to the Mercury Music Prize in the UK, which is it's modelled on the Mercury Prize, which is to try and pick the next biggest thing in the UK. There's a similar award now in Australia called the Australian Music Prize, and we've had in our catalogue 3 artists out of the past four winners, which is a good result. We have dozens of local artists, all genres rather. Now we also have international composers and catalogues who trust us for this territory. And these are big music companies who obviously have offices in the UK and the US, but they don't necessarily want to set up an office here in Australia. It's a long way away, and we only have 25 million people here. So they look to us to represent them. Catalogues like Kobalt and Chrysalis that are the biggest, and Imogen is another one, which is the biggest in the world. They represent songwriters who write songs for major recording artists. I've got some pop hits there, but even sort of newer, cooler artists like the EES, whose album's just debuted at #8 this week. Metric, who are currently all over radio. Eric Hutchinson, who is known for the Pack to the Rafters promo at the moment. Then there's direct international signings. The Red Hot Chili Peppers, the White Stripes, Jack Johnson, and a number of others have chosen to keep Australia and New Zealand out of their worldwide deals so we can represent them, which is a fairly brilliant achievement on our behalf over a number of years. So we are talking, the big artists do have their home at Mushroom, but there's also a large collection of lesser knowns, the cutting edge, the indies, and especially local indies. Now what I thought I'd talk about is some similar industry challenges that the music industry and the gaming industry has. Obviously it's just beyond, I suppose, representing intellectual property, which is pretty basic. New formats for a changing media world. Now, when I started Mushroom 15 years ago, we were still paying royalties for singles. I'm not sure if anyone can remember those, but they always got stuck in the car anyway, and you're playing the song over and over again. Now, we've moved on from that within a 15-year window to what we call all-you-can-eat schemes. And examples of that, the current advertising you'll spot, this was actually one block of advertising I saw last week. There was ads for iPhone and Big Pond games, you know, the guy getting on the bus. Not sure about that ad. A couple of ads later was for Nokia, comes with music, and that model is based on getting your mobile phone, having it for 12 months and having the ability to download as many songs as you like and keep them permanently, even after 12 months if you decide to get out of the mobile phone scheme with Nokia. Now, there's a prime example of how our industry's changed. With Ian and myself, the jury's probably out on that one a little bit. We're not sure if we really support that sort of scheme or not, but it does show how the changing media world has certainly affected our industry. Another thing we have in common is obviously pushing Australian creative talent not only to Australians but to the world. It's a hard road for us even to convince Australians to buy Australian music. If you look at the charts at the moment, there's 3 artists in the top 25 of the album charts, which I've mentioned there, Keith Urban, Empire the Sun and Jessica Mauboy. Internationally, we're not having huge sales on Australian artists at the moment, but there are inroads, little labels around the world releasing our independent artists and enabling those bands to go and tour internationally. And as I mentioned, things like plays of Australian bands on American TV shows, obviously helpful to us. Another thing I thought I'd mention was piracy. Obviously we've got that one in common. A couple of weeks ago I was on my honeymoon, funnily enough, in Vanuatu, and I walked into a shop And there on the counter was cassettes of albums